and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 427, and today's date is July 29th, 2014, and the title of this episode is Central Bankers Continually Pushing War as the Economy Falters. And what are we seeing all over the corporate media? We're seeing consumer confidence is exploding to all-time new highs, and everything is fantastic. The illusion is here. People are believing it. And what we're seeing is consumer confidence exploded higher to the highest since October 2007. Now, we know what happened after October 2007. We completely started to implode leading up to October. This is the third monthly rise in a row and the biggest beat in 13 months. Now, we have to understand how they get this consumer confidence and what questions do they actually ask when they're calculating this information. Well, what we're seeing right now is they ask consumers a series of 5 questions, and these are the 5 questions. Appraisal of current business conditions, expectations regarding businesses 6 months from now, appraisal of current employment conditions, expectations regarding employment conditions 6 months hence, expectations regarding total family income 6 months hence. Now, the respondents answer either positive, neutral, or negative to each question, and an index is then calculated according to the response of all 5 questions. Now, to most Americans, these questions are too abstract. It is like asking them, what is the weather in the United States, and what do you expect the weather in the United States to be? How does one answer this? You would probably look out the window and describe what you see. And guess what? This is exactly what people are doing. The consumer confidence questions are being answered in a similar manner. Respondents don't really know how to answer such abstract questions as business and employment conditions, so they describe what they think is the ultimate economic indicator. And guess what that is? It is the stock market. People look at the stock market to gauge what is happening in the economy. If the market's going up, the economy's fine. But what people don't understand is the stock market is the last indicator that we have collapsed. And when people see this, it is way too late. The collapse is happening. Businesses are laying off. People are not making money. Repossessed houses, foreclosures, repossessed automobiles. It all happens once that goes down. And that is like the signal to all companies saying, okay, you have the right to get rid of all these people and start laying off en masse. And we can see right now, we have been following all the indicators up to the last indicator, showing you how real estate is not recovering, it's actually imploding, showing how retail sales are a direct reflection on how people are working, how much money they have, what they're spending. We can see right now all of this is an illusion. Now, what's very interesting, there's a study that came out, and it's saying that 35% of Americans are facing debt collections. More than 35% of Americans have debts and unpaid bills that have been reported to collection agencies, according to a study released Tuesday by the Urban Institute. These consumers fall behind on credit cards, hospital bills, mortgages, auto loans, student debts, and many other things. Now, it even includes gym membership and cell phone contracts and things like that. So we're seeing that 77 million Americans right now are facing the debt collectors. So what does this really mean? Well, this is telling us that people are not making enough money to pay for their bills. Now, they most likely were unemployed and they tried to get another job and they couldn't, or they did find another job and they were making less money. And they've been trying to sell their home, they've been doing whatever they could, they have car payments, and things are getting very, very rough for them. And the study found that 35.1% of the people with credit records have been reported to collections for debt that average around $5,000 based on September 2013 records. Wages have barely kept up with inflation during the 5-year recovery, according to Labor Department figures, and a separate measure by Wells Fargo found that after-tax income fell for the bottom 20% of earners during the same period. So we can see right now that people cannot keep up with their bills. They're not making enough money. This is a direct reflection onto the retail market, where we're seeing mass store closing, mass layoffs, and of course those people who are being laid off from businesses right now are having a very tough time because they're sending out their resumes. Of course, they're getting their severance packages if they have one. If they don't, they go right on unemployment, and this is not the same income than what the person was making before. So it makes people it makes it much harder to survive once all this starts to disappear, and it takes a little bit of time, and then all of a sudden people become a little bit late on their bills, they run behind, and then all of a sudden it's set to send to debt collectors with automobiles. They can repossess the cars. Banks right now are not really foreclosing on the homes. They don't want to touch it at this point. They're just leaving them off the market. I know a couple of people who have been living in their homes, haven't been paying the mortgage, and the bank has not come and done anything to them. Now, we can see that the delinquent debt is overwhelmingly concentrated in the southern and western states. Texas cities have a large share of the population being reported to collection agencies. Dallas is around 44.3%, El Paso 44.4%, Houston 43.7%, and San Antonio around 44.5%. And this is starting to spread all across the country. And what does this actually tell us? Well, this tells us that we're going to see a lot of foreclosures. We're going to see a lot of those automobiles that were given to subprime people repossessed. We're going to see a lot of people living on the streets, and as the credit gets worse and worse and it's sent to more and more debt collectors, the amount of people that have disposable income completely is gone. Now people have to pay in cash. And what we're seeing right now in the retail market and the real estate market is that people are not earning enough to save that type of money to go out and have that disposable income to purchase goods, and it's all starting to catch up right now. Now, a lot of people say that, the retail market, the stores aren't doing well because online sales are just fantastic and everyone is going to online. Well, if that is the case, then why during the winter months, during Christmas, UPS saying they had kind of a loss going on during that time period? And now coming into the second quarter here, profits dropped around 58%. Now, if everyone was ordering online, these shipping companies would be making huge profits. But we're not even seeing that. Online sales not moving up. Brick and mortar sales not moving up. We're seeing a total decline of people spending their money in these areas. It's because they're either unemployed or underemployed. Now, it looks like Kellogg's is going to be closing a plant in Columbus, Georgia. That's another 325 jobs. J.P. Morgan Chase, they are now going to lay off hundreds of people in their tech support jobs. Now, a while back in my reports, I told you I have a friend, my wife's friend, that works up in New York. He is a headhunter that places consultants into businesses. And just last month he said, you know something? For some reason, everything just dried up. He doesn't understand why. He doesn't realize, he's not realizing what's going on. People are not setting in jobs to him. Actually, those people he's placed are now being removed. Now, he places tech support people, just like J.P. Morgan, just like yesterday I reported on all those tech jobs they're laying off. He's placing consultants. This is the first line that disappears, and then they go after the employees. Most of the time, corporations will remove the consultants, then move to the employees, and then once everything's settled down, they hire back the consultants so they don't have to give them pensions and health benefits and things like that. And we're starting to see this right now. We're heading into August. When we move into September, we're going to see many more businesses laying off. Now, Case-Shiller is out there, and they're saying that home prices tumble most since 2011. This is the second month in a row that it missed, and we can see right now that home prices are starting to decline. Against a forecast rise of 0.3%, prices dropped in May by 0.3%. This is the biggest drop since 2011. In April, Case-Shiller reported only 5 cities out of the Track 20 posting sequential price declines. In May, this number soared to 14. So we can see now, like I said, it's starting to spread from a couple of places to other cities, just like it did back in 2007 going into 2008. We saw it happen. People were trying to sell their homes. Prices were coming down. People were chasing the market, and they couldn't understand why. Real estate agents didn't understand why. Of course, the corporate media out there was telling you that everything is fine. Real estate's going to boom. It's going to rebound. This is fantastic. And you have to remember, this is the hot season for real estate. We're coming out of it now. We are going to implode here. This is where we're headed. Why do you think these major corporations, J.P. Morgan, Chase, Citibank, Bank of America, and many of the smaller mortgage companies have been laying off all of these people? Because they know people are not taking out mortgages. This system cannot be sustained. It has come crashing down. And in the San Francisco area, what are we seeing? Well, we're seeing that prices now are leveling off and starting to fall dramatically. And on my side, I have a graph here, and this is the San Francisco year-to-year price increase per Case-Shiller. And every time we start going over the hump where prices are starting to come down, it seems like we enter a crash type of scenario, and we are heading down right now. We had a little dead cat bounce, and now we're heading down. The summer is over. We're moving into fall and winter. We already know the Fed is telling us that they're going to exit the stimulus plan, which they're not going to do, and they're telling us right now something is about to happen in that time frame, and we can see it right now. We are headed in that direction. Retail is a complete mess. Real estate is a complete mess. Unemployment is a lie. GDP is manipulated. They're trying to use everything they possibly can to keep the illusion going, and they are losing the battle. Now, we understand the illegal aliens are coming across the border, but what's very interesting is that a U.S. congressman said his trip to the border showed him the mind-boggling nature of the problem in a nutshell. And this is Representative Jason Chaffetz of Republican of Utah, described to a hearing held by the House Judiciary Committee Tuesday morning how he saw illegal immigrants arrive on the border, claim asylum, and then be given a court date as far in the future as 2020. That's 6 years from now. Meanwhile, they get a work permit to compete against those legally and lawfully here. We only know who these children are by what they tell us, the supervisor admitted. Truthfully, we don't really have any idea who they might be, where they came from, if they committed crime, if they're part of an organization or a drug syndicate or a terrorism cell. They have no clue. They do not have any information on who these people are. They're just coming into the city. As soon as they come over, they're saying, okay, you're allowed in, here's your court date, good luck, and that is it. Now, what's very interesting is that in an event of an emergency, illegals are going to be evacuated before citizens. Should a hurricane or other life-threatening catastrophic weather event impact South Texas, illegal aliens occupying various shelters will be first in line to get to safer ground, a National Weather Service coordinator says. So they're saying these illegals, and listen, everyone has a right to survive. Everyone should be put in a safe place, but I don't see why they're being helped first compared to those who are living here in the United States, that pay taxes, that are bringing up their children here in the United States. If they're going to save everyone, they need to do it in a coordinated way and saving everyone at the same time. They shouldn't say, okay, this group goes first, you guys stay back, let us help them. Now, first of all, the illegals should not be allowed into the country. They should be blocked at the border, and as they come over, they should be sent right back. Why this is not happening? Because this is part of the Obama administration agenda to bring all of these people into the country. And he is making plans right now, and he's doing something very significant. by executive action. He's going to give pretty much all illegals the right to be here in the country. This is what he wants to do. And this is going to be about 5 million people in total. He's going to do a blanket executive order and say these 5 million people now have the right to be in the country, even if you entered illegally. Now, of course, I mean, we could see how this is going to help him with Obamacare. All these people who have these low-paying jobs, who got their work permits, will be put onto Obamacare with subsidies. The government will pay for it. All these people then will vote for Democrat, and I don't really care about if it's Democrat or Republican. I am for the people. I really don't care about the parties. If you do right by the people and support the people, then I'm behind you. Right now, I'm behind no one in the government. I don't see them fighting for the people. I see them fighting for other nations. I see them taking the money here in the United States, sending it over to other countries. The central bankers are part of this whole scam to lend out money and get interest on the money as they lend it out to other countries. And this is why nothing is really done here in the United States. And if you are for the people, then I am for you, but I don't see this right now. I think we need to wipe out what's in the government right now, replace them with people who say, you know what, no to the central bankers, yes to the people. We will create our own money with no interest on it and distribute this to the American people. And guess what? We will see growth at this point. But he's trying to bring this all about. It's part of the agenda to boost Obamacare, to try to put more people to work at these low-paying jobs, to make the numbers look better, to blur the lines between the borders here, and who knows, all these people are loyal to Obama. If something happens, impeachment or anything like that, he could have agent provocateurs within these groups, because we know that a lot of these teenagers are being spread across 23 states, and it's in the highly populated areas of the country. So we can see this is all part of his main agenda, and it's all encompassing a lot. Now, it looks like the U.S. is pushing sanctions everywhere. Sanctions over here, sanctions over there. And we see that senators now are clearing way to sanction Venezuela. The bill would impose U.S. assets and visa freezes on Venezuelan officials who perpetrated human rights abuses against protesters in recent months. Wow. Well, let's take a look at Israel right now. They're killing innocent women and children, children that are on the beach. Any sanctions on Israel? No. Let's look at Ukraine right now. Ukraine firing on the people, not the armed forces where the people are fighting, but on their homes, into hospitals. Any sanctions over there? No. How about in the Middle East, where the people are rising up saying, we don't want to be part of this puppet regime, and they're being drone attacked, they're being fired upon. Any sanctions there? No. So we can see right now these sanctions are absolutely ridiculous. Their only reason they're being put into place is to pressure countries into doing what the central bankers and the United States government wants them to do. Why do you think all these sanctions are being placed on Russia? To get them to do what they want to do and to demonize them, to make it look like they are pushing the war agenda, where it's actually the opposite, where the United States central bankers are actually pushing the war agenda. Why do you think they've been doing the pivot to Asia, surrounding China with missile bases and having 60% of the fleet in the Pacific? Why do you think they just said, okay, all these states are non-NATO states, we can give them military assets, we can give them aid? Why do you think they're bringing in military assets to this entire region? Why do you think they want to continually push this all around the world? Look where the United States is. It's in Eastern Europe, in the Ukraine. It's in the Middle East. It's in Africa. It's in the Pacific. All of these are flashpoints ready to break open and get the war started. Now, the U.S. is looking to create a new base for UAVs in Crete. The U.S. has asked the Greek government for the permission to place a number of UAV drones on Crete for a period of 6 to 12 months. Now, what do you think they're going to use these for? Absolutely you know what they're going to use them for. They're going to use them for the Middle East. The drones are part of the American strategy in tackling the rising terrorism in the Middle East and surrounding areas. And right now, the Minister of National Defense is pretty hesitant about agreeing to this. Now, it doesn't mean he's not going to, but he's looking to get something out of this, and we'll have to see how this plays out. Now, there's a German pilot out there, and he's discussing what has happened in Ukraine with the downing of MH17, the Malaysian flight. And he's saying, from everything that he's looking at, Peter Hysenko, a German aviation expert, he made the claim that this was an air-to-air fire that brought down the airline. You can tell, he said, when you look at the cockpit, shows traces of shelling, clean round holes about 30 millimeter caliber. Some holes are bent inward, some outward, rivets bent outward. Moreover, small cuts have been seen, all bent outward, which hint at the fact that fragments have penetrated the outer hull from the inside of the cockpit. Bullet holes in shell, now the controversy. This is the controversy of what actually happened. I know the Russian government has satellite imagery of a missile being fired. We also know the Su-27s were behind the plane. Who knows? Maybe both brought it down at the same time. But really, this is kind of not that important at this point in time. The important thing is which group actually did it. And everything that we've been seeing has been pointing towards the puppet regime as a false flag event. Now, Kiev is out there, and they are saying they cannot provide security guarantees to experts at the crash site. Ukraine's security troops said Tuesday they cannot provide these protection for the police forces. Of course, the pro-Russian people said, yes, we can provide protection. We want you to come in. And it looks like the Kiev military and their actions are trying to prevent the investigation from going forward. They're continually bombarding the Donetsk area. They're firing all around the crash site, and this looks like this is being done on purpose. Now, the Dutch Prime Minister is out there, Mark Rutte, and he has called Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko to ask government forces to stop fighting around the Malaysian airline crash site after experts were unable to get there for a third day running. Now, you can see right now that the Ukrainian puppet regime, they are completely disregarding Resolution 2166, and Clause 7 of the resolution, saying that all military activities need to pretty much be stopped. And it looks like they don't really care because they're trying to hide something. This is the only reason why they continually do this and try to keep all these forces out of the area. Now, of course, I see Poroshenko saying, yes, we should have a ceasefire, but we've seen this before, blah, blah, blah. He talks a lot. Just like every government official, we need to take a look at their actions. What are their actions, not what they're saying? The actions tell us the truth. Now, it looks like the Ukrainian troops are using ballistic missiles against independent supporters, and right now these weapons have range of about 50 miles and pack up to about 1,000 pounds of warheads, and it looks like they are firing them into that area. And it's non-stop. They're continually doing this, trying to disrupt the investigation in that area. Now, Kiev authorities are warning all the people that this is going to be a very tough winter. We have to remember Ukrainian government is falling apart. They're trying to get non-NATO status so they can bring in more relief loans from the U.S. government and more military assets. And a Ukrainian top-ranking official said the city authorities were trying to save certain amounts of gas to ensure a stable heating season. But guess what? They couldn't siphon off enough gas. The gas was shut down. But they are now warning that more houses would be cut off from hot water supplies. They need to save as much as they can. And they're saying that this is going to be a very hard winter for the people. So right now, as you keep putting this on the people, the economy's failing, you're drafting the people, you're going to say they're going to freeze to death during this winter. We might see another uprising of the people in Ukraine. because people can just take so much, and after a certain period of time, they say enough is enough, and they go out and they riot. And we can see right now, are they better off now, or were they better off when Yanukovych was their leader? And it's starting to look like Yanukovych was a lot better off. They had heat. They had a full country. There was no fighting. There was no draft. The government was not infiltrated with a puppet regime. Yes, maybe he wasn't the best leader, but guess what? They were handling it themselves. There was no other countries pulling the strings and making them do what they want the other country for them to do. So we can see right now things are completely falling apart there. Now the UK is going to take part in an exercise in Poland because they want to send a signal to Russia. The UK is to send a full battle group of about 1,350 military personnel for exercises in Poland amid rising tensions with Russia over Ukraine. They will take part in NATO maneuvers in October to support allies in Eastern Europe. Some 350 armored and other vehicles will be involved in the October exercises known as Black Eagle. And I noticed this is happening during October where they're building up the troops around that area. We also know the Fed said they're going to be out and the stimulus is going to end October. We understand that the markets have crashed in October 1929, 1987, 2008, and who knows, 2014. Now it looks like the Senate Bill 2277 isn't just about Russian aggression. They're trying to push this bill, and it was introduced on May 1st, 2014. The bill says to prevent further Russian aggression toward Ukraine and other sovereign states in Europe and Eurasia, and for other purposes. But let's take a look about what these other purposes are. Well, this is the part that involves exploiting natural gas resources and inundating the former countries of the Soviet Union with American propaganda regarding the coming conflict on behalf of not just our government, but you, the American people, listed in Section 305 and 306. The U.S. government is going to help by allowing American corporations to exploit existing natural gas reserves and conduct additional exploration for oil and gas. Well, now we can see why Biden's son was placed in his position. Kerry's friend was placed in his position, because now they're going in there to extract the natural resources of the country. And this is exactly what the central bankers do. And we can see why all of this has come about. And they're going to use propaganda on the Americans and other countries to show why everything is fantastic and everything is wonderful in this region. And we know it is not. Now the EU just came out with their new sanctions against Russia, and it's more of a wrist slap of sanctions. It's just enough sanctions to please Washington, not enough to infuriate Putin into a boomerang type of an effect. The sanctions are as follows. EU agrees to curb on Russian banks export of some technology, EU to restrict export of equipment from Russian oil production, EU to curb state-owned Russian banks' access to capital markets, EU to impose embargo on future arms sales to Russia, EU to curb sale of dual-use machinery, electronics to Russia. Sanctions will be reviewed after 3 months. And what we're seeing right now, besides all these sanctions, there's a but. But Aid said U.S. has approved exports of dual-use goods to Russia. Commerce Aid says U.S. hasn't revoked Russia export licenses. U.S. goods approved for export have military applications. So the export of goods is still going strong, and they're not going to stop this. And since the sanctions were put into place, what we're seeing is the export to Russia has increased. It hasn't decreased. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, Russia is trying to do the following. Lavrov urged Kerry to push Ukraine government for a ceasefire. Well, we know that's not going to happen. Kerry discussed arms control, Ukraine, and the Middle East. Well, there's not going to be any arms control. The Middle East, Ukraine, the central bankers are on a certain path. They're not going to listen to what Russia's saying. Lavrov says Kerry agree on need for ceasefire near MH17 crash site. So far, we haven't seen this. We have seen it intensify. And of course, Kerry is out there saying, well, Russia needs to show that they're going to make every type of effort to stop the ceasefire to stop the attacks in the MH17 area. Well, that's just ridiculous because the firing is coming from the Ukraine side. And Kerry says Russia shows no shred of evidence of backing a ceasefire. Well, that's just ridiculous because the pro-Russian people are in that area and Ukraine is firing into that area. Kerry, U.S. will impose wider sanctions on Russia if no change. So we can see from all of this, the United States central bankers are pushing their agenda forward for war. They don't really care about peace. I said this many, many times. They talk a lot about peace, but that is to please and to make everyone feel good. Their actions are war. War, war, war. And they will do anything to get their way. They don't care what they need to do. They will push it as hard as they possibly can. Now, the IMF is out there, and they are warning that all these sanctions on Russia are going to have an adverse effect on the global scale. IMF spokesman William Murray said that the potential global impacts of the anti-Russia sanctions are still under assessment, but clearly you can see that this is going to have a major impact, and it will. As they keep doing this, BRIC nations and other nations are going to pull away from the dollar every single time, and we see this escalating as time goes on. More and more countries are hedging their bet. They're making sure they're protected, and they're pushing that forward, and this is just going to get worse as time goes on. But the central bankers, they don't really care because they realize their end goal is to create World War III. Now, it seems like Israel has pretty much hit the media broadcast outlets of Hamas. They're trying to stop news from getting out, and they're bombarding that area. Israel has also knocked out the Gaza power supply. People have no power, there's no water, and they're strategically maneuvering and hitting the infrastructure of Gaza. And this is coming out of The Guardian. Israel is finding it harder to deny targeting Gaza infrastructure. And I said this way, way back. They are completely demolishing the infrastructure of Gaza. They're trying to force the people out of this area. They'll have no way of coming back. They want Gaza because they have the natural gas and oil off the coast, and they want it. Hamas was in the middle with making arrangements with Russia to extract the resources in this area. Israel said, no, this is our resources, but there was an elected government of Hamas, and Hamas said, no, we're making a deal with Russia. This is part of our area, and Israel had to use the three teens to get in this area and to take them out. And now they are just demolishing the entire infrastructure in this area. And the scale of humanitarian crisis has already alarmed human rights organizations. Last week, what we're seeing is about 1.2 million people were now affected by lack of adequate access to water, sanitation services, raw sewage spilling onto the streets, damaged pipes. They have no power. It is getting worse and worse as every day goes by. Now, Hamas is saying, listen, we will have peace. We do not trust the United States to handle the peace agreement. The country we do trust is Russia. We would allow Russia to come in and handle the peace agreement for us, just like they did in Syria. Now, this is very, very interesting, and this just proves the point that Hamas was dealing with Russia back in January to extract the natural resources right off the coast of Gaza. And now Hamas is saying, listen, we will talk peace, but you'll have to deal with Russia. We want them to represent us. And this is very strong, and guess what? The United States is going to place more sanctions on Russia because of this. Now, it looks like the story of Israel is starting to lose ground here because of all the protests around the world. There are even protests in Israel, and we can see that the story is starting to fall apart about this battle. I mean, again, they're hitting anything and everything inside, killing innocent women and children, and all these bottle rockets that are flying back to Israel really are doing absolutely nothing. And again, Israel attacked first into Gaza. And if anyone attacks me, I would defend myself. Any country would defend themselves. So yes, they fired back. And right now what we're seeing is that Israel is caught now, and the story of them going into Gaza is starting to fall apart, and they need an out. And what we're seeing right now is the U.S. is helping them pave the way for an out. Will it work? Who knows? But this is what they're doing. The U.S. intelligence community has warned that al-Qaeda could replace Hamas in the Gaza Strip. A leading member of the U.S. intelligence community said the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant could dominate the Gaza Strip. Defense Intelligence Agency Director Michael Flynn said the toppling of Hamas by Israel could facilitate the entry of ISIL, or the Islamic State. If Hamas were fully destroyed and gone, we would probably end up with something much worse, Flynn said. The region would end up with something much, much worse. Now, it really won't, because the Islamic State is controlled by the United States, Israel, UK, and other Arab nations, so they know that this will not affect them whatsoever. They're trying to maneuver their way out of this, saying, you know what, maybe we need to leave them intact right now, and we can maneuver out because we don't want something worse in this area. Now, we'll have to see if this goes forward and plays out, and we'll have to take a look at this. Now, yesterday, I talked about the Islamic State smuggling oil from Syria into Kurdistan and then selling it on the black markets using the US dollar. And of course, the United States has no problems with this whatsoever. Now, you have to remember, in my couple reports back, I said all oil sales need to go through Baghdad. Now, there was a point in time where the United States central bankers backed Maliki on this, when Kurdistan was trying to sell oil not going through Baghdad. And the United States said, no, you have to use Baghdad to sell the oil. Well, right now we understand there's an oil tanker sitting off the coast of Texas, and guess what? The UN came out and said, and I said this yesterday, that they will impose sanctions, and it is illegal to sell this oil or purchase this oil and from a terrorist group. But this oil tanker was here, is still here in Texas, and the U.S. now cannot take it. So they've come out and said, listen, yeah, we are sending the National Guard out there. U.S. court has ordered marshals to seize a cargo of oil from Iraqi Kurdistan aboard a tanker off the Texas coast. And they're saying the tanker was carrying about 1 million barrels of crude oil, worth about $100 million. And of course, Iraq came out and said, no, this is supposed to go through Baghdad. The UN came out, and now all of a sudden the United States is out there saying, listen, yeah, we're not touching this. But they had no problem with the smuggling of oil. Remember back to Libya, the SEAL team was on that tanker in no time flat, bringing it back. This smuggling oil has been going on for quite a while, and they're looking the other way. This is how you know the Islamic State is controlled by the U.S. government. Now, the U.S. is banning flights over these 6 countries right now: Ukraine, Ethiopia, Iraq, Libya, North Korea, and Somalia. They're saying that it is very dangerous to fly planes, and we are pretty much banning any type of passenger flight over this area because of what happened in Ukraine. And of course, they were the cause of this too. Now, it looks like Chinese hackers obtained some type of information on the Israeli Iron Dome, but what we know is that this is probably a huge amount of propaganda, because we have to remember back the United States ousted 5 Chinese hackers inside the government of China and said these people were committing cyber espionage and cyber attacking. Of course, these are advanced actors. You cannot pinpoint and name these people of being the ones who have been doing it. Quite impossible. So what we're seeing right now, they're showing that, oh, they want the Israeli dome because it was so successful. And look, China is the evil one, and they're attacking and cyber attacking to get this information. Well, this again is propaganda. Now, don't get me wrong. All these countries use cyber espionage, and they do cyber attacks against each other. This is a fact. We all know it. But to push this out in the mainstream media was done for a specific reason, and this was done to demonize China at this time. Now, we can see right now that the Islamic State is being painted as the new poster child for terrorism. Baghdadi, he's the center of it. He's replacing bin Laden. And right now it looks like al-Qaeda is not carrying the weight right now, and it seems like the Islamic State is the new terrorist group, and they're trying to get rid of al-Qaeda slowly because the American people and the rest of the world weren't affected anymore by al-Qaeda. It lost the fear factor, so they're moving everything to the Islamic State. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.